A lot of times when I meet my clients, they have never invested in any type of job search strategy program or career coach before. If people have, it's often the capacity of like a resume writer, or maybe they've talked to a one-on-one career coach. So it occurred to me that what's really helped me make my own decisions in purchasing courses and advice. There are two places where I've purchased advice that I can think of off the top of my head. One is in general business, but a lot of marketing things. I think there's been 3 or 4 group programs that I purchased in that realm. Everything from copy editing to learning more about social media ads, stuff like that. And also in investing, personal investing. And it occurred to me that I always choose group programs, and that the reason I do that is because of my training as an educator in thinking about what it takes to put together a course. So because of my background as an educator, I tend to favor group programs, and I wanted to share that information with you to possibly save you money, to help you decide on something that might be right for you, to consider a group program, or to maybe realize that none of this is for you, or that you do want a one-on-one coach. Whatever it is, let's talk about why group programs can be more beneficial in many cases than individual coaching. Okay, the first reason that I personally almost always favor group coaching over, or a group program over one-on-one coaching, is a problem and solution-based approach. I worry sometimes with a one-on-one type of coach that what I'm going to get is someone who is still figuring things out, who doesn't have a methodology, doesn't have a framework, doesn't have a solution. So if they're just listening to my problems and offering me a solution based on that, I'm like, are you doing this with other people? Like, what's your experience? But I mean, I don't even care if someone's done it a lot. What I care about is, do they know a lot about like the market, what's happening, and then saying like, these problems use these solutions, not just me. So that's a big idea for me. And it's kind of like, I don't know if I used this comparison in my last video, but if you have a personal trainer, like it would be normal that they'd have some different approach with other people, but for the most part, they're going to have solutions for different needs, whether you're trying to be stronger, whether you're trying to be more toned, whether you're trying to lose weight, whether you're just trying to be healthier. Like those problems have specific solutions, and so that should be apparent. And if you think about it, there's a reason a lot of people choose group classes over personal training, and that's actually a great comparison to make. Second reason is cost effectiveness. I know as a coach that I have to charge more for individual coaching, even if that in itself isn't necessarily going to be a better solution, simply because I can only fill up so many hours of my day that way, right? Like you do the math on this. An individual coach has to charge so much to even make a decent living when you think about their overhead and the amount of time they spend marketing and all those things. So you end up paying a lot for it. And I don't believe that it's worth that individual approach necessarily. In many cases, it might be for you, and you can kind of think about for you why that might be the case. But I don't think it's worth it compared to the group program. I don't think it's necessarily going to get me better results. So I would much rather pay a fourth or less for a group program than for the individual coaching. And that's the case for me. Typically, depending on where we're at right now, my group coaching is going to be about 25%, somewhere between 20 to 35% of the cost of an individual engagement with me. And you can totally understand why that is, but the approach is the same. The framework is the same. The solutions is the same. So really thinking about, why do I think I need individual coaching, and saying, is it going to be cost effective for me, is a great thing to think about when you're considering a group program versus individual coaching. The third reason I prefer group coaching over individual in most cases is because, honestly, I don't think a lot of the people who are best at what they do offer individual coaching, or if they do, it goes back to the price. So I think about someone who I chose to invest in for this investing program. and I listen to her webinar, I see her values, I see her experience, I see the way she teaches, and it's so worth it. She doesn't even offer one-on-one services, and why would she if she's the best at what she does, or she's very, very good at what she does? So often people aren't going to have that option available, or that's going to be like a supplement or something like that. I do have that option available for people, but I often will actually try to tell people, hey, you should see if you're a good fit for the group program, because they have the same framework, they have the same solutions, and you can always add a one-on-one here or there if you need to, but it's really about understanding the curriculum as a whole and following the steps and getting that solution to your challenge of finding a job. All right, there are 3 things that I have seen that are key for someone to find a job. And those are also the same 3 things that I look for when I'm going to invest in a program that, for example, usually if it's related to my business, and a lot of those are marketing. So here are the 3 things that I look for. I look for a roadmap. How are we going to get there? What is the plan here, right? Because if I'm trying to figure something out on my own, I often don't have a roadmap. A way to filter advice. And so in a program or with a coach, it might be I can ask questions through a community, I can submit questions, maybe there's a Q&A session, but when I'm kind of confused about how advice applies to me, whether that's advice from the outside world or advice from the course, I can kind of get that clarified when that comes up. And the third thing is a community. Every program I have joined has had a community aspect, and I can think about how much value I've gotten from getting to know people in those programs. To this day, I have a friend that I was in a business program with, and she lives in Indiana, and I've never met her in person, and we do a Zoom call like twice a month. So that has been huge for me. There's also times where I'm feeling, some kind of way about my business because it is so intertwined with my life, and it can be scary sometimes. And in my experience, people often feel that in the job search as well. So being able to talk to others and get that support from the kind of person who is not only going through what you're going through, but the kind of person who's willing to invest in themselves at the same level that you're willing to invest in yourselves is key. It's actually an interesting kind of data point story here in terms of the benefit of being in a paid group program versus a free group program. When I first started business, would look for free things. My friend was like, hey, you should come to this group. It meets once a month and it's about business. And I know you want to start a business and it works around your work hours. So let's go next month. And I went. And I went for a while. And then I sort of was like, I don't know if I'm getting what I need from this. And it's free. So that's okay. But they did a survey to see how much each business in the group was making. And it wasn't the amount of revenue, not even the amount people were paying themselves, but the revenue of the businesses wasn't even close to a living wage. And that's if the person had no costs. I think it was below the poverty line. And so I don't know if it was that a lot of people in this were doing their business as a hobby or whatever, but when it comes down to it, it's not that the people in the group were necessarily had to teach me something, but I want to surround myself with the people who are willing to who are going after kind of the same goals that I have. And when I joined different group programs at different price levels, I found the people that were already had some level of success. I found the people who were already at my level or above me and could kind of speak to that. I even got really amazing free advice from someone in my community that I paid for, but I wasn't paying her for that. And it was easy for her to give and whatever, but it really changed the way that I thought in a 30-minute conversation with a small group. Someone who had been through what I'd been through. And it was huge. And something about the way she said it to me, who she was, I don't know, it clicked. And that was it. That for me was a milestone in my business, to be in that community with this particular person and how generous she was. And I can't even say enough about that. But that feels like something that even the coaching in the group wouldn't have been as impactful without that person who wasn't even a coach. She was literally also a customer in that group. So overall, I just think the community aspect of a group provides so much. And it's interesting to me that so many, individual coaching doesn't have that typically, but yet you get that extra aspect in a group program, even though it tends to be less expensive. And the last reason that I prefer to purchase group programs, and I think that they can be superior to individual coaching, is a model that allows you to have more resources than just the interaction with the coach itself. So this is something that actually is a part of my one-on-one coaching, but it might not be for a lot of people, where there are videos, there are exercises, there are written guides, there are things that people can get information that they can get when they're not with me. So yes, this is great because I actually give everyone access to this, depending on how long their engagement is, but usually it's a year, where they can watch the interview stuff, the salary negotiation stuff later after our engagement. Cool, that's great, right? That can be a great aspect of a group program. But additionally, I know that I need time, and I think most people need this. I don't know if we realize we need it, but a lot of times we're not going to have a question about how a step, a methodology, a tactic applies to us right away. We're going to think about it and have that question later. So in a lot of group programs, you have this element of video or some other content library aspect, and you get to think about it and ask questions. Either you can write them or you can come to a Q&A session. And that, I think, really bumps up the level of what you're able to do. Because if your individual coach works with you once a week and then you have a question 2 days later, you're often going to have to wait to ask that question. Or maybe you can ask it like in between sessions. But I think it's much more impactful to have like a video. And it goes back to how curriculum is structured. This is really about that mix between having this framework and this methodology, and then having content you can consume on your own time. And then if that is all in an organized curriculum, then that's a really big benefit of a group program or some type of learning program, class, course, whatever it is, as opposed to an individual, one-on-one coaching engagement. If you have more questions about even how to vet something, I also made a video. It should be up already. I think we'll put it in the comments below of how to vet like a program. If you should I do this paid program? Is this a good person for me to work with? That sort of thing. You can go to that. But at the end of the day, I hope that I've given you not only the ideas of why this can be better, but also the reasons, because you may come out of this video thinking, actually, I really want individual coaching. And maybe you just want it because of your own style. Or maybe from my reasoning, you're like, none of that stuff matters to me. This is what matters to me. If I've helped you to make that decision and go the opposite way, then I've also done my job to help you figure out what's going to be best for you. So if you do have any doubts about this, you can always send me a DM. You can go over to my Instagram at Bespoke Professional if you want to send me a DM, or just find me on LinkedIn. And I really hope that if this video is helpful for you, you will subscribe, hit that bell so that you get notified of future videos. Don't forget that you can always send a video to a friend if they're in the process right now of trying to think about investing in a program. Don't forget that I have live sessions, usually almost every Thursday. You'll be able to tell over there on my Instagram if I'm going to be doing it this week, but it's very, very often, and it's almost always at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch the video, and I will see you again next time.